I usually does tutorials, but today I'm going to get a little bit into talking head videos.
You've said that it's good for any professional programmer to know at least 5 languages.
When you are a computer programmer or when you are learning a specific programming language, it's not the smartest idea or it's not the best idea to just stick on one programming language.
It's good to learn so many languages, and I picked 5 out of a hat as a
You
number.
pick 5 out of a hat.
Obviously.
Let's
The
forget
important
languages.
thing that the number is not 1. With programming languages, you become a better programmer, better designer with the second language. Now, once you've got 2, the way to 5 is not that long. It's the second one that's most important.
If you are learning C, I also advise you to learn C++. If you're learning HTML, CSS, I also advise to learn JavaScript, React, Vue.js, all of those type of things. So when it comes to Linux, I always tell people, learn Python. Don't just stop on Linux. I strongly recommend you also learn Python. That's why I introduce Python to my channel as well, and also upload some SQL. Python is a very powerful language that is also used alongside Linux. And here is the reason why. You have a lot of opportunities in cybersecurity, network administrator, ethical hacker, and yes, there is a job out there for hacking. The government, for example, pays top money for hackers. If you are the type of person to build applications and you want to get into building stuff, building apps, building servers, building anything, when you have to use a programming language, it's also in your best interest to learn a little bit about hacking. You don't have to know everything, but just know a little. You have to know when a hacker gets into your application, you have to know how to hack back your application to kick the hacker out. And the government pays top money for hackers because the government, they're working with mass volume of data. And that's when Python comes in. When you're using Linux, for example, in cybersecurity, you would use Linux for security features. You would use Linux for the defense against hackers. So the Linux infrastructure would help you recognize anomalies in real time. So anomalies are stuff that or things that is unnormal or unusual to the system, stuff that the system is not normal to. So for example, let's say at 8 o'clock at night, the system is down. You're not expecting any type of activity on the system. Then you would know that, okay, this things shouldn't be happening at this time. Or if you find a bunch of files on your systems that shouldn't be in that directory. So someone is in the system. And if something is not normal to the system, then you would need Linux to spot that. Now, Python comes in when you want to create scripts to recognize weakness in the system or to process and analyze data and fix the data before it becomes vulnerable. So I always say to people, learn Python along with Linux and you would never go bad. I think if you are a programmer, SQL should not be a topic. You should learn SQL because everything you deal with around you when it comes to the tech world have to deal with data, and you need to know your operations. You need to know how you would use the data. What would you do with the data that you are handling? And it doesn't matter if you build in web applications or if you build in a phone application, if you build in a server, all of those things incorporate into customers at the end of the day. And once you're dealing with customers, automatically you would deal with mass volume of data. SQL is just as simple as Linux. It's literally commands, but with Linux and SQL is pretty straightforward. You want to select a row in the table. For example, you just use the command select country from a table. Simple as that. Python does have a bit of SQL feel in there as well. So no doubt about it, learn SQL. Linux is a very I don't want to use the word easy, because when you are a beginner, it can be a little bit complicated. You need to get a hang of it for the first couple months or the first couple weeks, and then you would understand how easy it is. Linux is literally command. You write a bunch of command that goes with what you're looking for. So for example, if you want to display a list of stuff on your computer, you would just use the ls command. And if you want to display it and you want to sort it, you would want to pipe your ls into the sort command to sort what to sort the files on your system. It's not like C or C++ where you have to write a whole bunch of code and use all the logic in the back of your head. Linux is literally straightforward to me. You write some commands together to create a script to do a specific task. Now, it's unfair, as I said before, for me to say it's easy, but I would say when you get a hang of Linux, you will see how easy it is, or you would see, okay, it's not so much of a hard thing to grasp. Yes, you may not find a lot of companies who would hire for writing command line prompts. However, you would find a lot of companies hiring for cybersecurity, networking, ethical hacking, and so on. Linux is also used in a lot of applications. You would be surprised to a numerous amount of applications that incorporate Linux as their choice of programming language. Almost everything is online. Everything that you handle, everything that you touch, everything that needs some type of technical interaction needs security. Hands down. There is no going around security for the cyber world. Clothing stores, cell phone companies, your local government, as I said before, the city, schools, every company or every business that needs security as long as they're online. And when it comes to security, we're talking Linux. So if there is a job out there that is in demand, is online security. Linux is very powerful. Incorporate it with Python together and it's explosive. I just like the fact that Linux is open source. So you have an advantage of putting Linux on things, on lots. I remember I went to a conference, and this one person asked me in a conference, like, he was new, and I expect that type of question from him, and he said, I like C. And I like C too, because when I started off in programming, C was my very first language that I started off with. I love it. I still do. I still use it, but I wanted something a little bit more challenging. So I was going down into the cybersecurity and testing the waters of networking and those type of things. So I ventured off more into Linux. So he loves C, and he said, but what can I do with C? That means I would only have to be working for a company, whereas if I know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, I can build my own website and make money from there. If I know Swift, I can build my own app. If I know React Native, I can build my own app. But I don't really like those type of languages. I love C, but I don't know what to do with C, C++. I don't know what to do with it. And I said to him, have you ever Googled, like, have you ever researched what can you do with those programming languages? And he said, I tried, but, I'm still a little bit confused. I said, C, C++, those languages is what you use to build robots. Those languages is what you use to run a car. For example, Tesla. Those languages is what you use for your smartphone. For example, Swift, Objective-C is basically C. A couple years back, I had bought this little robot thing from Amazon, and that's when I used to work with C a lot. And I put it on that little robot thing. It's not a Raspberry Pi. It's one of those little robotic stuff you can purchase on Amazon. And I put the C code. I program it in Robot C, and I put it on that little robot. It's like a little truck type of thing. And I made it move and made it go back and made it spin and made it do whatever I asked it to do. So if you are a beginner and you get in conflict in where you should go or what you should do with programming languages that you're learning, you can do a lot with it. The thing about programming languages back then to now, a lot of the programming languages, or when they update their language, or when the programming languages get updated, a lot of them now comes with built-in functions, so you don't have to program it from scratch. For example, when I started off in school, I couldn't use any functions at all. Like, I couldn't use any functions in my program. The professor would not allow it. So for example, if I wanted to sort any array, I had to do it manually. I couldn't use any sort functions. If I wanted to find the min and the max, I had to manually write the code for that. I cannot use any built-in functions. But now a lot of companies are accepting it. A lot of professors are accepting it. It's there to make things easier for you. So programming languages back then is different from now. Now you have a lot of built-in functions that can do stuff for you. It's always great to know it manually, but in a data-driven world where everything is so fast, you need to write your codes really fast. So you can learn it on your free time just to know how the mechanisms or inside of the machine work. You can go a little bit deep to understand how the programming language work itself, which I highly recommend. As sometimes I go into if they have like whatever functions they have. For example, in Python they have this function that would when you're doing data visualization, and sometimes you want to read the documentation to see how it works and get down into it. And also, like when you're doing for example, when you are working in Linux and you're learning about pipes, you want to get down a little bit more into, okay, how does this pipe work, and how does this work, and where does it save, and what process created it. So you want to get a little bit deeper into things, and it's recommended. But now the world, it's too fast. It's too much of a heavy pace for you to be writing thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code when you can just write 100 lines of code with built-in functions. So don't get discouraged. Don't feel like you cannot really do a lot with what you're learning. As I said before, Linux is very powerful, but I highly recommend you incorporate Python with Linux. You never know what we're heading for or where we're going in the future. And you can see around us, AI is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Customers, users, data are getting much more larger in mass volumes. With data getting so large, security would always be a factor. So you just learning Linux right now, maybe today it's a high demand for servers and network administrators, but in the future, I can guarantee you cybersecurity will be the number one job in need. When you working with so much data right now, you need that security, and cybersecurity will be the number one jobs for programmers. You can live a very decent life being working as a cybersecurity. Please try to incorporate Python with Linux. Once you incorporate Python with Linux, you cannot lose. You cannot lose. You can get job as a data analysis, data scientist, data engineer, and those jobs pay big money as well. So if you can, try to incorporate Python with Linux, and that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of Python SQL on my channel together with Linux, because in the future I'm trying to incorporate cybersecurity on this channel as well, same as building servers, same as networking. I'm not sure if I'm going to dive into ethical hacking. Those three languages together can give you great advantage, and sometimes you will use all of three of those languages together. So that's it for this video. Don't feel discouraged, and I would see you in the next video.